Ladies and gentlemen, one of the hottest topics in the Formula One world right now is the situation at Red Bull. It seems like Sergio Perez's seat is anything but guaranteed for the coming period. But in order for the Austrian team to replace him, they need a very strong second option. Enter Daniel Ricciardo, the former McLaren, Mercedes, and Ferrari driver who has been rejuvenated all of a sudden. So with this in mind, is Ricciardo the best option to replace Perez? And more importantly, does this mean that this is the last season we're going to see the Mexican driver participate, considering the wishes of the Racing Bull shareholders now being publicly exposed? Sergio Perez has been under a lot of scrutiny for his performance. Had it not been for the 2-year contract extension he received, it wouldn't have gathered as much negativity as it does right now. However, Red Bull is not as naive as they might appear on the surface. Judging by Perez's contract, there are 2 clauses that could see him being replaced by a driver like Ricciardo during the mid-season period. The first clause is that he shouldn't be 100 points below Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship. The second clause is that the difference between both of them shouldn't be more than 5 places. Right now, both of these conditions are heavily fulfilled as Perez is under massive threat to drop to P8 in the Drivers' Championship. Mercedes has found an amazing development curve that could put them up for competition on a much more frequent basis. But then again, it's interesting that while Ricciardo has emerged as a top candidate to replace Perez, he won't be handed this precious role just like that. The Australian will also be evaluated in the next 2 races before the summer break. If something extraordinary happens with his performance, or if he manages to keep a steady upward curve, he would likely be in greater contention for the Red Bull seat than he is right now. Even Helmut Marko said that Ricciardo being promoted to the senior team of Red Bull would be possible only if he manages to perform to an extraordinary level that exceeds their expectations. It hasn't really gone the way Ricciardo would have expected. He even spoke negatively about his chances of securing that Red Bull seat, focusing more on the future with Racing Bulls. But it's been a quick change of narrative and a couple of bad performances from Perez that made the Austrian team realize that it couldn't get any worse than this. Not having a driver up there with Verstappen is definitely their biggest weakness in the Constructors' Championship and potentially in the Drivers' Championship as well. Christian Horner has spoken about this, admitting indirectly that Perez doesn't deserve what he got from Red Bull, but was treated with mercy due to his poor form. When answering a question about whether or not the contract extension was given too early, Horner went on to say that at the time of the contract extension, it made absolute sense to sign Perez. But this is a business where there are pressures to deliver. We thought the contract would help, and Perez is working very hard on it. But this is a sport where there is no hiding. Furthermore, nobody has been more honest than Horner when it comes to keeping his seat alive. He openly stated that not scoring points with the RB20 is unsustainable for a driver of Perez's caliber. Therefore, a replacement could very well be on its way much sooner than anticipated. It would be interesting to see whether Red Bull is willing to let go of the sweet money pouring in from Telmex, the primary reason why Perez holds the seat in the first place, and also prove to the entire F1 world that they value performance much more than sponsorship and endorsement. It's very interesting to see Ricciardo emerge as the potential replacement for Perez because the Aussie himself hasn't been the best addition to the sport after all. On the contrary, he found himself in murky waters as Helmut Marko spoke against the 8-time race winner when it comes to continuing the collaboration with Racing Bulls. The team wants to return to their old roots of having young and competitive drivers in their lineup. And it seems like Ricciardo doesn't fit well in their structure despite his constructive and expert feedback that propelled the team in the right direction. The most important thing for Ricciardo, however, is to not stop with the development of his drive. The next 2 races will be crucial for the 8-time race winner. Ricciardo expressed his frustration about inconsistency, saying, "My biggest frustration is the inconsistency. It's frustrating because I look at myself in the mirror and say, I can do this very, very well. So how do I make sure I do it consistently? Because if I do, I'm laughing. but it's more positive than negative. There will be a day when I won't be able to do as well, but I'd much rather have these sporadic days. Both Ricciardo and Perez share their marketing value, which keeps their seats alive even in times where other drivers would have seen the exit door much earlier. If we compare the 2019 Gasly situation, where he got demoted mid-season while he was P6 in the Drivers' Championship with a much less superior car than what Perez is driving, it's safe to assume that Perez's contract with Red Bull is anything but secure. Helmut Marko has spoken openly about this, admitting that there are lots of changes due to happen in the Austrian team mid-season. When talking about Perez and his contract, Marko said that all the Formula One contracts have exit clauses, most of them related to performance. During the summer break, they will evaluate all the drivers and make a decision. We must also consider that Liam Lawson fits perfectly into this picture. He is the driver supposed to replace Ricciardo if the Aussie makes the jump to Red Bull. However, Lawson's first test with Red Bull in Silverstone didn't generate too much excitement, giving Perez a further lifeline with his contract. Red Bull is approaching these things with great caution. For example, overhyping a driver could quickly burn out his aura, which was the case with Nick de Vries and his amazing debut in 2022. Lawson has a great record, outperforming Yuki Tsunoda on 3 out of the 5 races they competed as teammates. During his first outing in Singapore, he managed to finish P9 and scored 2 points for the team. All of this puts Lawson on the map, making him a huge contender for an outside team as well, preferably Audi. But Red Bull would desperately push to put Lawson in a seat because of the Verstappen situation, with rumors linking the 3-time world champion to a move to Mercedes. Christian Horner mentioned that Lawson's tests, including one later this year, had been planned for some time, so they're not something that just sprang up. Liam is Red Bull's test and reserve driver. That's his job. With all this in mind, do you think Ricciardo will get the Red Bull seat and Perez will be shown the door as Lawson is promoted to Racing Bulls? Let us know in the comments below. And once you do that, make sure to click on the video that's appearing on your screen right now